Good morning and welcome to Illinois Transitions Academy, ICAPS Model 2 in the field. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat box and we will answer questions after each of the presentations today. This is Bevan Gibson and I'm here along with Colleen Potter from the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center. If you would like a certificate of attendance following this webinar today, please email me. My email is in the chat box and you will receive one sometime next week. This webinar will be recorded and it will be archived and available next week on the ICAPS website. So if that helps anyone for future reference. So without hesitation, we're going to go ahead and start today. We'd like to welcome our panelists today for Model 2 ICAPS in the field. They are Keisha Davis Johnson, the Executive Director of Greater Westtown Community Development Project, Linda Thomas, the Director of Client Services at Greater Westtown, Augustin Jaramillo, the TDL Instructor at Greater Westtown, and Dan Deasy, the Manager of Adult Education, CE Ops and Grant Compliance from College of DuPage. So we're going to first begin with Greater Westtown.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. So I am Keisha Davis Johnson, the Executive Director, and we will be focusing on ICAPS in the Field Model 2. Just to give you a really brief background on Greater Westtown Project, we are a nonprofit organization. We're located on the west side of Chicago in Humboldt Park. We've been around for almost 30 years. Our mission for our organization is focused on empowering people in the community through workforce training, education, and jobs. And so today we're going to be focusing on our adult education program, vocational training, and explaining how our program falls into the ICAPS Model 2. So with that, we're going to be focusing on our distribution logistics TDL, and AJ, Augustine Jaramillo, will be focusing on that.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Hi, my name is Agustin Jaramillo, or AJ, to make it a lot easier for everyone to remember. So I am a instructor here for the TDL program. Our program title is considered, or is called the Shipping and Receiving Vocational Training Program. Our program length is a total of 380 hours for 12 weeks. And once a participant completes the program, they have the certificates that you see before you on the PowerPoint, 380 hours of training, which is approved by the Illinois Board of Higher Education and accredited by the Accrediting Commission of Career Schools and Colleges. They will also walk out of here with a 10-hour general industry occupational safety and health administration card, which is the OSHA card. We also provide certification for lift trucks through National Safety Council. And then finally, when talking about our TDL industry and the future of it, we also provide a North Star Digital Literacy certificate, which assists them through modular training on digital skills that are needed in the workforce. And we can go more into that a little bit later in detail if you have any questions. Primarily, the focus on training is so we have the breakdown of all the other teachings that we do. UPS, FedEx. We do instruct on freight rates, material handling equipment, which includes anything from lift trucks to your manual pallet jacks. Then hands-on training, which if you can see on the slide is a warehouse activity. We do a high percentage of hands-on training for students and participants. Underneath that, if you look at a warehouse management system, when considering the TDL industry, warehouse management system falls into inventory control, but also into computerized inventory data and information. So it's important that within the program they touch on a lot of computer-based learning in order to access information that's needed within the warehouse. So that's why the warehouse management systems, or WMS, is at 6%. We have warehouse operations, which is mostly the day-to-day operations of warehouse and shipping and receiving industry. And then the other one is terminology, just to make sure that the participants have the correct verbiage on the way into the workforce. We study and we make sure that our participants have that knowledge with them. And then you have your although it only shows 1% for safety here, it's tied in with the OSHA and the National Lift Truck Safety, so it is much more than 1%. But that's what the general breakdown is of the course. Next slide, please. And then on to talk about bridge and basic skills, I'll go ahead and let Ms. Linda Thomas talk.
Good morning. So for our bridge program, we follow the bridge and the basic skills. And so for that, we make sure that we run the program for math. We have contextual, industrial-related instruction and materials. So in there, we would focus on math that would be used in the shipping and receiving industry. So we're heavy on decimals, and from that, we get to calculate freight rates and weight. And we're heavy on fractions so that we can work on measurements and space utilization and inventory management. Another critical part of the training program is our language, the language skills, which is 18 hours of training. And this is where we're making sure that our clients have good communication skills on the job and the ability to have conversations and make sure that they're using the terminology that you would use in the industry. So we focus on industry vocabulary and terminology. We make sure that we focus on our writing skills so that we're able to write, communicate through our writings for memos or letters or reports, and the various documentation that's required for shipping, for the industry and the shipping and receiving industry for documentation. So we have bill of ladings that we have to follow through on. We have inventory control sheets that we have to follow through on. So we try to make sure that in our bridge program, the basic skills, that we are doing the foundation of the training program and preparing them so that it meets, so that they go hand in hand with the technical skills training portion of it. In addition to that, we do digital literacy, and that's an 18-hour course, and I'll let Augustine talk more about that because he basically runs the digital literacy program for us.
Hello again. So when it comes to digital literacy, I don't think a lot of students or participants understand the need within the industry now of becoming very aware of the computer use within the warehouse industry. So we try to bring in the concept of computers, through module learning, through the North Star Digital Literacy Program, and that is assisted, or we are, that's a program that we've been able to work with the Chicago Coalition for Literacy with. So we have that offered to our students. What we do is we start off with computer basics and just get the individual used to, the things that maybe we've just become used to, accustomed to, which is, turning on a computer, how to use a mouse, how to search through a page, how to move through pages. And then we move into internet basics because there is a section within our training program that we do use the UPS World Ship, which is an online shipping platform to get parcel shipments out to customers. And with that, though, they will need to know how to access the internet and use the availability of the internet provider's services. Also, we talk about emails, and when we discuss and go through the email module, that's definitely a point that we mention to the participants, that it's to be used in order for the job search function when you apply for jobs and when you're able to send emails to employers, prospective employers, how the email is written, the context of it, and and basically just how to send it, how to hit the send button on the email. The other two functions that we do touch on are operating software, and that's just to give them a general understanding of what they're working on within the computer. And then word processing, or the Word, right now I think it's a Word 2010, if I'm not mistaken, that the modules have. So we work through Word 2010 and make sure that they know how to use the word processing application. There are many more available modules for digital literacy that include Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint, and then a comprehensive study at the end. But we feel that with these 5 modules, we're able to assist the students with the necessary, or at least the foundational knowledge, to go ahead and move forward within the job and in the career in transportation, distribution, and logistics. So that's all I got for that.
Next slide. Oh, we're there. We have the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the next slide is our workforce preparation activity, and this is a combination of 60 workforce preparation hours that's encompassed in our training program. And so with that, we have guided career exploration, where you see employer partners. We're looking at the labor market and see where the job trends are going as we're placing participants in jobs. We're exposing them, as Linda mentioned earlier in our class, in terms of industry-specific work, coursework. So it's not just the basic skills in terms of the math and reading that they need to know for the job, but actually specific details in terms of the ins and outs and things that they will have to maneuver on the job with hands-on practices in the shop. Also, we have industry tours where we actually visit employers and partners, and we build employee partners on a regular basis. And the great thing about the program is that our instructors, our CTE instructors, they assist with the actual job placement. So by building partners with employers, when they're working with participants, they know which is actually a good fit for that particular student. Next slide. The other, when we talk about the job readiness, so in the job readiness class, so of those 60 hours of combined workforce and preparation activities, 20 hours is actually the job readiness, where they do mock interviews, resume building, employable skills, application techniques, job retention, and one that is not mentioned is we have transitional jobs as well. So this is where the participants get exposure on the job free of charge from employers. Another thing that we've been working with for the past 3 years is the TIP program, and some of you have probably already heard of it. It's called Transforming the Impossible into the Possible, and this is with Dr. Philip Hung, and it's been really resourceful. So when you think about the traditional job readiness classes, you may look at the above in terms of the mock interviews and the resume building, but with the TIP program, it really focuses on what are those social, emotional skills that participants need to be successful on the job. So a lot of times when they're unsuccessful with placement, it's not necessarily that they don't have the technical skills, but it's being able to communicate effectively, articulate issues that may be going on. In addition to that, the emphasis on the critical thinking. In terms of when they come up with issues, to kind of do the rationale in terms of the pros and the cons. And I'm going to have AJ talk a little bit about the TIP program, because he's been facilitating it for the past 1.5 years.
Hello again. So yeah, I've been working with Dr. Philip Hong at the Loyola University Center for Research on Self-Sufficiency, so the Cross Institute. I'm a facilitator here, and we've been doing this program for about 2.5 to 3 years, where we work with our participants and students in order for them to realize the accomplishments they've made in their lives up to this point, and how they can use those accomplishments to push further into their careers, into their lives. As you can see on the slide, there's psychological empowerment. So make sure that they know, or that we all know, because to be completely honest, it's something I get to learn every time we start a new program. What pushes us forward in our careers and in our workforce? How do we get up every morning and move forward, although we face many barriers before? So it's something that we talk with the students about. We assist them with creating some goal-oriented pathways, and that way that they know that there's a future focus that they need to be able to see and visualize in order to create those hope actions to get to that point. We do discuss perceived employment barriers. So all these barriers are probably things that on the outside would look, detrimental to someone's ability to attain or retain employment. But when we start discussing about how we're able to move past it with these hope actions, I personally feel that I've seen for the past 2.5 years that a lot of our participants realize that these are things that can be done because they have been done previously. All they need to do is look back in their lives and see where they were able to move forward and progress in their lives. And then ultimately what we're searching for here is to make sure that the participant becomes economically self-sufficient. So this is, not only financially and within the world view, but within themselves, that they find that drive within them to push forward. And we feel that this will assist them, especially with the retention part of jobs, because, getting a job, I always tell students that getting a job is probably one of the easiest things, but in order to keep that job, that's when the real work starts. So we walk and we talk throughout our 12-week course about how we're able to put everything we've learned about ourselves through the TIP program, how we can put that into action to move forward. So that's the TIP program. Any questions? Like I said, ask us later. I personally feel it's a great program, so you can go ahead and ask me anything you want during the question time.
So in terms of our funding, our program is funded by state, federal, as well as city. So we have WIOA, adult and dislocated funding that supports our program. We have ICCB, as well as DFSS, Department of Family Services. So all of these funding streams support our salaries and benefits, PD, CTE instructors, and supportive services. In addition to that, I just want to be, clear in that the program is at no cost to the participants that we serve. In terms of ICCB, as I mentioned before, we have ICCB funding that carries a bulk of the adult education piece. But in addition to that, we have ITAs through our WIOA Title I funds, individual training accounts. Actually, I think there's a typo on the PowerPoint slide. IDHS, Illinois Department of Human Services, helps us with funding as well. And then we have private funders. So we have the Polk Foundation, Lloyd Fry Foundation, as well as Chicago Community Trust Fund. So as I mentioned before, we have a variety of partners that we have actually said out loud throughout this PowerPoint presentation. So we have Chicago Cook Workforce, we have City Literacy Coalition Program, we have professional advisory committees, the PAC, and that's where we meet with industry employers, and we try to meet with them at least twice a year, and this is where we get input from them in terms of our curriculum to make sure that we're staying abreast with the current practices. In addition to that, we talk a little bit more about participants that we place with those employers and just figuring out ways that we could build a better partnership to actually support our participants as well as the employers. AJ, Augustine mentioned earlier that through our TIP program, that's our partnership with the Loyola University. And then in terms of employer partners, these are some of the places where we actually place our participants that go through our TDL program is Lawson's Product, Rush Medical Warehouse, Cambridge, LDR, Global. But we are constantly going out and actually looking at new employer partners within the industry that we can place our participants.
So this is Linda again. So for lessons learned for participants, and so we've been doing the vocational job training programs here at Greater Westtown for over 20 years. And from where we started out to where we are today, our clients they're changing. The needs of the clients, they're coming in more multi-barrier clients. So as before, when we started out the program, we had clients that were just laid off from their jobs and they needed to just update their skills and get back into the workforce. But now we're finding that our clients they're in greater need of a number of wraparound services so that they have a successful outcome to go to work. And so a big barrier that we're seeing outside of people having, whether or not they have a felony in their background or their education, we're finding that we're getting a lot of clients now that their basic skills is extremely low. So we have the challenge of working with them to remediate those basic skills. In addition to that, we're seeing people with that have more trauma, mental health issues that are going on. So we try to do a mental health first aid, a checkup on them to make sure that we're addressing those needs as well. Because if we don't address these needs, then they're not going to be successful when they go to work. So we try to make sure that we're providing all-around services for our clients. Okay. Questions?
If you have any questions, please post them in the chat box. I have a couple of questions while people may have some questions for you.
Okay.
One of those is, do you have ESL students, ABE, or both in your program?
We have both. We have, we're not an ESL, we don't run an ESL program, but we do have English as a second language clients that participate in our training, as well as ABE. And in addition to that, we have a pre-GED program that will assist our clients with GED studies that are within the training program. We have it built into our basic skills as well.
Okay, and what is the required level of students to get into your program, like for a TABE test?
So functionally we were at least at a 6th grade level, and high school diploma was not a requirement for the training program. However, in our last few cycles, we're receiving customers that are functioning below that 6th grade level, and so we work with them in a pre-bridge to build up those skills, their TABE score levels for their reading and math as well.
Okay. Colleen, do you see any questions in the chat box?
No, there's none in there.
Okay. All right. I would like to thank you, Greater Westtown, Linda and Augustine and Keisha. And so at this time, let me get my clicker here. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Dan Deasy from the College of DuPage, and let him talk about the College of DuPage Model 2 ICAPS. Dan?
Good morning. The title of this, the Model 1 in the field, was really appropriate for this particular project that we created, because most of it we created as we were learning and identifying and addressing needs, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But so the Model 1 that we chose was in the manufacturing area, and the title of it was Rampup. It's Recovery and Manufacturing a Path Up, and it specifically addressed the population of ex-drug offenders who were at a certain point within their recovery, to provide them training in manufacturing and access to employment. So if you can go to the next slide. So we have a very good partnership with our American Job Centers partners, primarily Work Title I. Our job center is called WorkNet DuPage. We have been trying to work with them, and they've been very open to creating, and initially we kept pursuing Model 1 IET types of programs in manufacturing. They were very open to that. They tried to help recruit. We kept running into very similar issues. Primarily the clients that they were getting could not wait. Our Model 1 is more structured on the typical college semesters. The location was only on campus. So many of the folks that were interested, that they were getting, many of their clients that were interested in manufacturing wanted to start right away, and we kept running into a problem where we couldn't build a cohort enough of a cohort to start a formal Model 1 program. But that process led to this opportunity. So we were approached by our Title I partners at our American Jobs Center. They had been working with an organization in our district called the HOPE Task Force, and that stands for Heroin Opioid Prevention Education Task Force. And like many communities nationally, DuPage County, which is makes up the most of our the primary county within our college district, we have experienced a huge impact, or an increasing impact, related to the opioid crisis. So our drug-related arrests have been skyrocketing, and the deaths related to opioid addiction and overdose have increased astronomically. So this HOPE Task Force approached our Title I folks, and we're looking for specific job training for this population, and that lined up with the efforts to address our manufacturing skills gap in our district. So these two needs kind of came together, and we were approached to develop an educational training program that met both of these needs. So our partners, obviously we were the primary educational partner. Working at DuPage, the DuPage County Workforce Board was 100% behind this effort. Our health department, our Department of Probation and Court Services, our Sheriff's Department, our local treatment centers, and then obviously we had our local manufacturers partner, and on the tail end of the program, they had agreed to take the graduates of this program who were certified, take them on in paid internships initially. So next. Core partner responsibilities. So Working at DuPage, they provided the funding for this project, for the development of our faculty, the development of our curriculum, and it is based on a standard curriculum from MSSC. They were going to cover the student costs, faculty costs. So they were paying the bulk of the non-adult ed funding. So they bore the weight of that, covering those costs. They also recruited employers, and they provided funding for the paid internships. And at the tail end of the educational experience, they also provided those soft skills and job readiness training, such as resume building, interview skills, the core group of skills you need to maintain employment. So they were responsible for that. We were responsible for recruiting faculty on the manufacturing side, as well as the adult ed side, building the curriculum out, coming up with a timeline, building a support course, providing the adult ed supports, assessments, those types of things. And we also provided the materials and equipment that the students would use as they went through this process. Our health department, they participated by recruiting students, screening students for eligibility. They provided the space and some additional in-kind costs. Community treatment centers participated by recruiting students and putting students forward that met the eligibility requirements. And again, our local manufacturers who agreed to participate, saw the value of this program, and agreed to accept the graduates and certificate holders into paid internships, with the goal of the project to get permanent employment within those businesses. Next. So our goals. So when our students completed, they would have hopefully sat for the industry recognized credentials and received 4 certifications from MSSC, 1 in safety, quality practices measurement, manufacturing processes and production, and maintenance awareness. In addition to that, they would obtain those soft skills, and they would obtain a high school equivalency if they were lacking one, or they would obtain reading and math skills to make them more proficient if they had that high school equivalency. And then upon completion, they were guaranteed a paid internship within one of our partner employers. Funding, this truly was a braided funding effort. As I mentioned, Title I put in a lot of money into this project. Adult Ed Title II paid for equipment, materials, and the adult ed support course and core curriculum. Community block grants paid for a significant part of the development of the project and student costs. And then Perkins assisted with materials and equipment And this is what we thought it would look like when we began discussing it. So I will tell you again, as we got into this, it did not end up looking like this. It was a learning process because the need was identified, and we all agreed to participate in this project, and we thought we knew what it would look like. But as we started to go through the process, the specific needs of the individuals and how we laid out the structure changed. Now, I will say, after going through this process and learning, the learning curve that we had and where we ended up, this moving forward, this will be the formal structure of the program, and all partners are in agreement with this. It's just getting to this. We started with this model in mind, and as we built the program, because again, we had to build it as we went. So, you always hear that overused phrase about building a plane while you're flying it. Well, this truly was that experience for us. But in the end, this is the model that we're going to formally put forward as now we've gone through the development and implementation phase. And all partners feel that this is the appropriate structure. How we got there was a little messier, but this is where we ended up moving forward. So next slide. Challenges. So I initially approached our CTE manufacturing faculty for partnership. So again, we've identified this need. The request from Title I was to our Title I WorkNet partners was to offer an MSSC CPT certification. Within our formal credit-bearing certification programs at the college, this was not offered. So I had tried to steer our partners into an existing credit-bearing certification program. And through much discussion, that is not what they felt was the need. So this opened up a challenge for us. So we had to meet with our manufacturing folks and see if they could provide some guidance on this. At one time, our college offered this as a credit-bearing certificate, and it's still an active certificate. But philosophically, and I won't get into the details of this, but they moved away from it and put more emphasis and resources on other certifications. So when I first talked to them, there was no interest in them taking this on. Then I asked if they had any instructors that they would be willing to share with us, because we are not a manufacturing division. So they've also said that they did not have anyone available, nor did they have an interest, nor did they have anyone they felt was qualified to teach this particular certification. So then it was kind of left to us to find an instructor, a manufacturing instructor. So we posted a position for just someone with manufacturing experience, education experience in the field. We went on the MSSC website, and there is a training and instructor certification process there. It also has it identifies people that have already been certified, and it's by state and by region. So, initial thinking, great, let's try to contact some of those folks. It literally was trying to find a unicorn in today's age. There were two people that were certified to teach what we were attempting to offer within our region. They both taught for high schools. We didn't get any interest to participate in this project. So we ended up hiring a candidate with an extensive manufacturing background in his education and employment. And he agreed to go through the certification process, become certified as an instructor in the MSSC, pass the exams, and so he was qualified to teach according to MSSC. This was difficult because our timeline, we'd already begun recruiting students. This was a wrinkle that we did not expect, so it impacted our timeline. But since we had captured students that with an interest in this project, I contacted MSSC and asked if we could have our instructor, who again had a wealth of manufacturing experience. We had no reservations about his qualifications or his ability. Had asked MSSC if he could go through the training process 1 month ahead of our students, so that he was experiencing what they would experience and was able to then develop the curriculum to address the needs within the class. So it was kind of a very unique situation for us. And again, it was kind of like the building the plane as you fly it model that we were thrown into. So that was the initial challenge. We did find the unicorn. We found a great instructor, took this on, very passionate about it, and did a wonderful job, not only going through the curriculum himself, but then quickly turning around, building lesson planning and curriculum for the students, delivering that, and and moving forward in that fashion. So that was pretty a unique experience for us. And then building that support course, we did that kind of at the same pace. We did not have a support course that was specific to this going in. I mean, we have a manufacturing support course in general, but we built that pretty much on the same pace as well. So next slide. Initial challenges part 2. I think anyone who's experienced, we were using TABE, so our targeted population, it was not ESL, it was what we thought would be those without a high school diploma or skill deficient in reading and math, native students. TABE was TABE 11-12 was a very poor predictor of the students' abilities once they got into class. And it turned out that all the students actually had a high school diploma when they entered, but almost all of them were shown to be deficient primarily in math. So that was our area of focus. Our initial timeline was a 16-week format, and it turned out, because of how we had to approach the design of this, it turned out going over by 6 weeks. All the students were great. They stuck in, they hung in there. They were very patient with us as we delivered the curriculum and supports, and it worked out. But planning for the future, we are going to try to stick to a 16-week timeline. It was delivered in a hybrid fashion, so they had 2 days a week, face-to-face, traditional, and then essentially 2 days they were supposed to be doing online modules, which then they would work on in the support course and when they returned to the classroom. The facility, it was very important to not only the participants, but all of our community partners that were involved to host the course, not on the college campus, but at our DuPage County Health Department at their community center. Many of the participants had to be in that area for other things as well, to meet with probation officers, to meet with their counselors, those types of things. So it was more of a, for ease of, number one, transportation, them knowing the complex, and then being at that community center. They felt it was very important to provide that to the participants. So that's what we did. We held it at the community center, and that was great in the respect that I just mentioned, but it did have some challenges in that it was not a traditional learning environment. So we had to bring in some equipment, to whiteboards, things like that. And then there were frequent interruptions because there were group counseling sessions going on that sometimes got very vocal, and there were other activities that were happening at the same time. So there were some concerns at the beginning about the facility, but in the end it worked out. We were able to address some of those and move forward. Next slide. Okay, our project outcomes. So our partners had recruited 7 eligible students who had passed the screener, had the interest, tested within our range of TABE. And our range of TABE, we had on math, it was a 6.4 was the lowest score that was within the class, and then it went up to an 11th grade. And in reading, it was a 7.4 to an 11.2 grade equivalency levels. So it kind of gives you a range of the student ability and what we were dealing with. Out of that 7, 6 students completed. We had 1 student who had some complications and left the area, but 6 students remained through the and completed the program. In the end, we had 22 certifications awarded, so MSSC certifications. 5 of the 6 passed all 4 industry recognized certifications, and 1 passed 2. And he was having significant math challenges, and he was having some external issues as well, related to some barriers that he was having to deal with in his life. So he did complete, and we are going to work with him on a one-on-one fashion to get him to complete the other 2 certifications. But in total, 22 certifications were awarded. 5 of the students that participated, the companies that agreed to take them on in a paid internship, they hired them outright. So the students went through the resume process prior to formally interviewing and submitting an application. went through that soft skills training. We actually had the employers come in and meet all the students, and each employer got a chance to talk about their particular, what they do, the facility, what the environment would be like, what working conditions would be like, some of the HR related things, benefits packages, salaries, that type of thing. So, so initially we thought they were going to go into paid internships upon completion. All five, the five that completed the 4 industry recognized certifications were permanent hires. And the average salary of the group, starting salaries were, it was a little over $17 an hour. So it was kind of in line with what we had thought. We had lined up a couple of jobs that these certifications would lead to post project. And the dollar amount, hourly wage, was in line with what our expectations were. They did get a variety of jobs within the manufacturing sector within these companies, so different duties and assignments. So very pleased with the outcomes. The one student who is still going to do some one-on-one work to pass the other 2 and get some additional math help, pass the other 2 certifications. He's actually in the interview process. Upon talking to the employer is interested in hiring him and is excited at the condition that he's going to continue his education and try to pass those other 2 certifications. Moving forward, as I said, so now that we've gone through this process, we're going to put it forward as an official, formal, sanctioned IET Model 2, and we are going to follow the structure that we first envisioned. Based on that the experience and learning some of the things where we were deficient in planning and programming, we feel that we can address and continue to go with our initial model, that 16-week format and that structure that I had provided earlier in the presentation. We're going to train 2 additional faculty to become MSSC CPT certified instructors. Our goal is to run 3 cohorts. Again, our focus is still going to be on that population of ex-drug offenders. The DuPage County Sheriff's Office is also very excited at the prospect of this and is asking us to come into the jail and deliver the safety module, a shorter term safety module for those that they're going to screen that will be, have a trajectory of being released shortly, so that they can get that first module under their belt, and upon release, go through the process they need to meet the obligations to the state, and then also join one of the existing cohorts to complete the remaining 4 certifications, and then be eligible for that employment kind of carrot at the end of it. So the final piece is we are going to work with our manufacturing program here and provide demonstrated comp assessments, get them to provide that. So work with them, partner with them to kind of align the certifications. Again, it was an existing credit certification within the college. Our thinking is that once they receive the industry recognized credentials, then they would be able to get that credit applied to them, and then that could be used for some of the certifications that are more actively pursued within the institution. And the goal would be then to keep them in that pathway moving forward once they get their footing within the employment, and straighten out and address some of the the barriers they have in their lives. So so that's moving forward. I believe that's last slide. So if there are any questions, please let me know.
We do have some questions, Dan, and we also have questions for Greater Westtown. We had a glitch with our chat box thing, but I'll address the ones to Dan first. Dan, do you hire separate adult ed support instructors, one for math and one for reading?
We do, yes. Traditionally we do, and we had both working on this project because, again, we weren't really because they all came in with a high school credential. We did have the TABE information, but as the curriculum rolled out, we weren't sure exactly what the needs would be of the students to contextualize those components. Ended up being most of the support course and adult ed course focused on the math skills, contextualized math, a lot of difficulty comprehending charts, histogram graphs, measurements, fulcrum, force, friction, all the things I would have difficulty with if I were in that class. So we had to kind of build that as we were moving forward. So initially we did have a reading and a math faculty engaged, but as we went through the program, we moved more to a math only with this particular group of students. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, and the other one is, what will you do to be able to meet the 16-week time frame? What changes will you make, or what modifications will you make?
Sure. I think one of the things that added to the time, that additional 6 weeks, was because of the kind of the model we were following, where our manufacturing faculty was learning the specific curriculum. Again, he had an extensive, his master's was in manufacturing. He had, I think, 25 years within the field, is working for a manufacturing company now. So he had a background, obviously qualified, but the specifics of the specific components of these certifications, he had to learn and then take those and put them into a format that was digestible and engaging for the students. So that process, that was kind of threw a hitch in it. So I think now that we have that under our belt, now that we know we have that support course more developed and that partnership more established, we think that will address that kind of the lag, the extension of time. I mean, that's primarily the thinking.
Okay, and
again, we will remain, because this is not structured. So I apologize. This is not a structured standard, ICAPS Model 1, where it's a start date and end date. We will, retain that flexibility, and that's one of the nice things about this. We talk to the students ahead of time, asking for flexibility, talking about flexibility. Our goal is to do 16 weeks, but we do have, we have the leeway to add on, or if we want to enhance their experience with other things, we could add modules or add time. So, but our goal again is 16 weeks.
okay, and I had one last question for Dan. Will this PowerPoint be shared?
What's that?
The PowerPoint will be on the archived webinar, Colleen, that will be available for them next week on the ICAPS website.
Okay.
I never agreed to that, Bevan. I'm just kidding.
Well, too bad, Dan.
Okay, going back to Greater Westtown, I apologize that there was a glitch with the system. There was a question. It's asked, are the 84 basic skills and 60 career hours included in the total of 380?
Yes, they are part of the 380.
Okay. And another question was, do you hire two instructors, one to teach the math and one to teach the language skills, or do you use only one adult ed teacher and to teach the math, language skills, and digital literacy?
We have, for the math and language, we have two instructors for the basic skills of that. And for the digital literacy, that is taught by one instructor.
Okay, that covers all the questions that I see right now on the system. Does anybody else have any more questions?
Okay. You have
Lynn
one?
Burkett said she has yes for a question, but she didn't put the question in there. Lynn, can you specify what your question is? How many cohorts in the program and how many students per cohort? For Greater Westtown. For Greater Westtown.
So we have roughly about 25 students per cohort, and we have 3 cohorts, 3 to 4 cohorts within a year, depending on the start and the end time.
Okay.
She said that's awesome.
Great.
Okay. What I'd like to do at this time is to thank our panelists. And Colleen, if you happen to see any more questions come up while I'm doing this, that'd be great.
Okay.
I want to thank you for sharing these two very different Model 2 ICAPS programs. I think that the field, sometimes when they think of Model 2s, they're not really sure what that means or what that can mean. And I think both of you have shared today two very different examples of how that can look, and partnering with different entities to actually make that happen. So I appreciate you sharing with the field today, and I'm sure that they appreciate it as well. We'd like to thank Keisha Davis Johnson, Linda Thomas, and Augustin Jaramillo from Greater Westtown Project, and Dan Deasy from College of DuPage. Again, this will be archived and available next week on the ICAPS website. And so if you have any additional questions, their information is here on this final screen, and I'm sure that they would be happy to entertain any questions that you might have in terms of their Model 2 ICAPS programs. So again, thank you all for attending today, and thank you, presenters. I'm going to end the webinar now.